Testing. We are testing different positions. We are testing things. We are testing. Testing, 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 testing. Testy, 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 test. Test, 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 test. One thing that I'm sure you are very tired of as much as I am is conflicting advice. Especially as someone who is in chronic pain and just trying to get back to lifting in a tolerable way that lets me enjoy it without having to worry about said pain. You're going to run into conflicting advice a lot, especially on the internet. Very trusted resources will tell you, oh, make sure you're doing this, this, and that, and avoid this. Versus other trusted resources in the same light will say, oh, don't avoid that, and make sure you don't do this, this, and this. It is very frustrating and very fucking annoying. Let me share with you how you can rationalize these things and understand what good you can take from them and what not so good you might want to ignore. And we're going to use a little case study with myself and the bench press. Now, the cool thing about the barbell lifts, I'm talking like squat, bench, deadlift, and overhead press, is that there are certain goals that you will need to do to make sure you execute these lifts properly, but there are also subtle nuances that everyone likes to argue about that genuinely don't matter. And I say don't matter in the lens of someone else might have use for that cue or that position, you might not. And it is okay. What works for me might not work for you, might not work for them. What works for us might work for them as well, but not that person over there. You get what I'm saying? So let's talk about how to view lifting and form in a way that lets you train without overthinking all these things and getting in your head about the pain you're feeling, and just lift in a way that feels good and lets you train for the rest of your life. So one of the first things to understand when you are trying to navigate pain when lifting is, what is the goal that I have to do in the first place with this lift? Now that seems obvious, but hear me out. If I'm going to bench, the goal is to get the bar to my chest and lock out the bar and then get it back in the rack. So here's the thing. Anything and everything that lets me accomplish that goal is valid. Absolutely valid. So that's where the fun comes in. If you can get creative and you can do things that allow you to accomplish your goal, no matter what people tell you, it's valid. Now, this isn't you to say, oh, my way works, I'm going to preach it as fact. That's the issue everyone makes on social media. But what I'm telling you is, for us, all we care about is getting back to training. I don't need other people to tell me whether it's right or wrong. As long as it feels good to me and it lets me do what I need to do, they're not the ones experiencing chronic pain. I am. We are. Right? So first, understand what your goal is. For example, I want to compete in a powerlifting meet. So just getting the bar to my chest and up isn't the full goal. I need to be able to pause on my chest for a count until the head ref says press. So there is going to be a little bit more extra steps or things that I might need to consider when I'm trying to find something that feels good to me. So we have our first step. It's understanding the goal of the lift. Now, step 2, what things for me might limit my ability to do this lift. This is very unique from person to person, and this is where individualization comes in. There's no magic variation or magic way of doing things that universally applies to everyone. It's just that as a physical therapist, there are things that I learned that will apply to certain specific cases, and that's where I deliver that to your case. So for example, let's talk about what's limiting me in my bench press. So I have a fancy diagnosis called cervical radiculopathy. It is a very fancy way of saying I have nerve issues that are affecting my arm and my shoulder. If you've ever heard of the term sciatica, this is wildly inaccurate, but I'd like to just say it's sciatica in your arm. It's a very easy way to just understand, oh, he's having nerve pain down his arm. Cool. I could just say nerve pain down my arm, but I think a lot of people can resonate with having sciatica in their life. So think Justin has sciatica in his arm. It affects these pinky and ring fingers here, and sometimes it reaches into other parts of my arm. But when it doesn't get too bad, it is mainly in my left shoulder blade, and it manifests as just like tightness. You might go on social media and be like, oh, shoulder blade tightness, and you'll get, oh, here's a protraction stretch for your shoulder blade, or oh, here, do this, or arm behind the back, chicken wing stretch or whatever. But the nuance is lost because, at least my privilege of being a physical therapist, I understand that it's not just a tight muscle. This is a deeper diagnosis that came from ruling things in, ruling things out, and just understanding my story better, which is what I do as a physical therapist and a strength coach, is listening to someone and figuring out, all right, it's not these things, it's probably this thing, but regardless, This is how it's presenting in your lifts. Let's modify it and figure a way through. So, with that being aside, that is my main concern when navigating the bench press. I told you my goal, and now I told you what I need to navigate. Hold on, let's do a set. I'm getting cold. So we have step 1, which is the goal of the lift, and we have step 2, what's limiting me from the lift, and now an obvious step 3, which is what do I need to do to navigate what I'm dealing with that lets me accomplish the goal of the lift. So like I said, in this case, I am dealing with cervical radiculopathy, the fancy sciatica of the arm. So this could be a whole video in and of itself of the ways that you can modify the bench press, which will come in the future. But one thing you might notice is if you look on social media, you're gonna see varying opinions on arching. Now, a lot of people say, oh, arching is bad for your back, or it's obnoxious, this or that. That's not the point of this video. I think like half the people that are arguing that thing need to grow up. Your body is meant to move in many different ways. Arching is one of them. And some people have a natural genetic ability to arch way more than other people. Like you can see from my bench, I do not have that big of an arch. But here's why arching is relevant to me. If I arch too much or too little, I will get the nerve pain in my arm, or I will feel severe tightness in that shoulder blade area on my left side. So now here's the actionable thing. I told you I need to be able to bench, pause on my chest, and press at the commands of the judge. The limitation for me is my shoulder blade and my arm. My modifiable factor, that's step 3, what can I do to adjust for those things to get the goal done, is modify my arch. Now, there are things like grip width, head position, leg drive, and all these other factors that can play a role in that same presentation for me. But one thing I truly notice makes or breaks my positioning and my pain is that arch. Now, there's the upper back's ability to arch and push into stability in the bench, and then the lower back's ability to arch, which is where everyone goes crazy on the internet. Both of those are actually very relevant for my neck. What I notice, at least for today's session, that is the make or break for me, is my upper back's ability to maintain positioning on the bench. And like I said, that framework can apply to all of your lifts. What's the goal of the job you're trying to do? What is your unique limiter? And then what needs to get done to make that limiter not relevant and not hold you back from your goal? I'm trying to bench, my arm sucks, modifying my arch makes it suck less. And it allows me to bench without having to worry about my chronic pain. So now we have some working sets here. I have 4 sets of 3 reps at my coach saying RPE around like 6-ish. So if my arm is being okay, coach recommended doing somewhere around like 275 to 280 pounds and then adjusting to maintain that RPE across the 4 sets. So we're gonna get into the first working set and we'll see how it goes. I am feeling egotistical. I'm gonna try 280 as the first set. So that did not feel horrible, but I realized midway through the set that I forgot my wrist wraps. Now, obviously, like for me at least, I'm not gonna re-rack, put the wraps on. Maybe if I was doing a single, like at higher intensity, yeah, I would have done that. But coach wanted RP6, which is relatively on the easier side of the lifts. That wasn't too bad. Despite that, I'd probably say that was around 6-ish. For me at least, maybe 7. I should probably say 7. But yeah, now I got 3 more sets of that. Yeah, I fucking lied. I overshot.